You're listening to Financial Advisor Marketing, the best show on the planet for financial advisors who want to get more clients without all the stress. You're about to get the real scoop on everything from lead generation to closing the deal. James is the founder of theadvisorcoach.com, where you can find an entire suite of products designed to help financial advisors grow their businesses more rapidly than ever before. Now, here is your host, James Pollard.
This is the fourth and final installment of the How to Think Better series, where I go over a bunch of ways to help you, think better. Thinking is the greatest skill you will ever develop because it will help you rise above all the noise that's out there and come to your own conclusions based on evidence. It will help you become a better problem solver, and it will help you avoid problems in the first place. One way to become a better thinker is to either change or expand your perspective. One of the biggest benefits you get from seeking a coach or a mentor or a consultant, and I'm not always 100% in support of getting a mentor. I'm not always 100% in support of getting a coach because there's a lot that can go wrong. But one of the benefits that come with that is getting a fresh pair of eyes on your business. I mean, have you ever taken a job and from day one started noticing a bunch of stuff that people could do better? It's because you had fresh eyes. You were the new perspective. Everyone else at the job had gone blind to the problems. Galileo once told a story describing the limits of our perspective that I really love. I want you to imagine you're on a ship crossing the ocean, and the ship is maintaining a constant speed, and it's going in a straight line, and we're going to talk about that, speed and velocity. You are on this ship, and you're below the deck. You have no portholes, so you can't see anything except what is inside the ship. It's like you're in a room with no windows. You drop a ball to the floor. To you, from your perspective, it looks like the ball is dropping straight down. Now, imagine you're a fish with X-ray vision. You can see inside the ship, and you're watching the ship pass you. You see a person inside dropping a ball, except you can see not only the vertical change in the position of the ball, you can see the horizontal change because the ship moved through water and so did the ball. The person on board with no external perception was not able to see this horizontal shift. Here's another example. Imagine three people are looking at a forest. The botanist of the group sees the ecosystem and all the plants within the forest. The environmentalist sees the impact of climate change, how things are getting worse over time, or if we're taking measures to save the forest, how things are getting better over time. And the business person of the group sees the value of the land. They all see different things based on their experience and their motivations, even though they're looking at the same forest. This is one of the reasons why I discuss so many topics in my Inner Circle newsletter. It's not necessarily because I want to. Believe me, if I could only write about marketing within financial services, I would. But it's because I know what leads to results for financial advisors. Learning what other industries are doing, it allows advisors to form a more well-rounded understanding, which can help them make better decisions. I mean, imagine having the perspective of the botanist, the environmentalist, the business person all at once. That is what you're going for. If you're trying to become a better thinker, you want to view problems from different angles. You want to explore things from different perspectives. And if this isn't just a theory either, if you don't believe me, here's what I want you to do. I want you to Google a list of Nobel Prize winners, and I want you to start reading through their biographies. You don't have to go to the library and get a big, massive 400 or 500 page book. You can just go to the Wikipedia page. Okay. You just click through, you Google a person's name, and you go to the Wikipedia page and just read through. Okay. You'll see that even though the Nobel Prize winners, obviously they specialized in things that won them the prizes, they also had other interests, and those other interests supported their specialties. That's what I'm doing with financial advisors. When I talk about stuff like Van Halen, Elon Musk, or a completely different industry, I'm doing it because it's proven to make the mind work better. I don't want to give financial advisors a fish. I want to teach them how to fish. And if they learn how to think, they can, not only can they call people out on their BS if they're BSing them. I had a financial advisor send me a message on LinkedIn where the marketing agency that he hired literally wouldn't even give him a cost per click. It's crazy. Like, WTF? They won't give him a cost per click. They won't even give him the numbers, the metrics. Like, how is that even possible? Just log into the account and show the poor advisor, man. Like, it's insane. And if you know how to think, you will call people out on this BS and you will know what to look for. It's kind of like if you outsource your taxes. You got to know a little bit about taxes to make sure that your accountant or your tax preparer isn't ripping you off. You have to know a little bit. And the same is true with marketing. But back to the perception thing with like Galileo and the fish. This happens all the time. We all have limits to our perception. And there are things we can't see. I did an entire episode about putting yourself in your client's shoes. You literally walk through your office. You make a marketing process as if you were the client. And once you create the process, you go through that process as if you were the client too. And this is a great exercise because it shifts your perception. You see your business from a whole new angle. And if you can apply this sort of thinking elsewhere in life, you'll be amazed at the things you will notice. Another way to shift your perspective is to think about the future. You don't want to just move your mind in space where you're in the boat and then you shift your thinking to being outside the boat. You want to move yourself in time, not just space. You're moving yourself in time. So time and space. What does the situation look like a week from now? What does it look like a year from now? This can help you get a better understanding of what's going on. In last week's episode, I talked about a few mental models you can use this week. I want to continue with that theme. The very first one I want to discuss it involves the law of inertia. Newton's first law of motion states, and I quote, "An object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed in the same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced force." The key here is unless acted upon. If a force, say friction, isn't present, the object will keep moving. Without friction or any force acting upon it, I think you have static friction and then you have kinetic friction, okay? But without kinetic friction, a ball will just keep rolling. So what does this mean for you? Two things. If you aren't getting the results you want, you must do something different. You must introduce a new force into your environment. This is science. It also means that systems resist change. This is a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's good if you have a system that's working because it means it can continue its momentum. It's bad if you want to change something because it means it's going to take a lot of work and you're going to have to apply force. But even that has a silver lining because if you know it's going to take a lot of work, you're not as likely to get discouraged. Nathan Barry, somebody I highly respect, he's the founder of ConvertKit. He has this quote, "The number one rule for creating anything worthwhile, for those creating anything worthwhile, it will take significantly longer than you think." And I've talked about what I call the optimist curse on this show before. It sounds counterintuitive, but optimists, they tend to get discouraged more often because their optimistic nature, it gets them to expect that everything will be fast and easy for them. That's the optimist part. And when that doesn't happen, they move to the next bright, shiny object and they rinse and repeat. When that doesn't work, they move on to the next one and so on and so forth. Look, I get it. Changing stuff is hard. That's why people stay at jobs they hate. They stay in relationships they hate. They avoid opening their minds. They keep doing whatever it is they've been doing for the past few years. I've encountered financial advisors who have been making cold calls for years. They haven't built any inbound marketing systems or anything because they've resisted change. In the real world, you can never really eliminate friction, specifically kinetic friction, which is the friction which occurs when two objects are sliding past each other. So a ball sliding across the floor. In theory, a rolling ball will roll forever without forces acting upon it. But here on Earth, there's always friction. You can't get away. But you can reduce it. I mean, a ball rolled on marble is going to roll more than a ball on carpet, even with the same push. You can also reduce friction in your business. A lot of this comes down to systems and processes. You can also do it by a specific example I'll give you is batching your tasks together. Because the first law of motion also, it completely, totally skewers the idea that multitasking works. Because inertia means that once you stop doing something, getting started again is harder than continuing the whole time would have been in the first place. When you shift from doing one thing to another, you exert unnecessary energy. When you batch your task, you're maximizing your energy expenditure. An example of this is planning out your social media content in advance. You could sit down for a few hours one day and plan out like a couple weeks of social media content. That way, all you have to do is find it and share it instead of spending 10 or 15 minutes per day and trying to figure out your social media content, racking your brain. I hope that makes sense. You're reducing the friction. You're taking advantage of what is literally the first law of motion.
Hey, financial advisors. If you'd like even more help building your business, I invite you to subscribe to James's monthly paper and ink newsletter, The James Pollard Inner Circle. When you join today, you'll get more than $1,000 worth of bonuses, including exclusive interviews that aren't available anywhere else. Head on over to theadvisorcoach.com/coaching to learn more.
Moving on, another mental model I want you to understand is the difference between speed and velocity. Speed and velocity are not the same thing. Speed is how fast you're moving. The definition is the rate at which something is able to move or operate. You could run in place quickly. You could be speedy in place. If there's a machine that is just stuck in a factory and it's bolted to the floor and it's making widgets quickly, it's got a lot of speed. Velocity is defined as the speed of something in a given direction. And it could be time, it could be space and time. So velocity has a direction. You must go somewhere in order to have velocity. A hamster could be stuck in a wheel going fast, but it wouldn't have any velocity. Like I said, if you run in place, you have speed. But if you take a baby step forward in a certain direction, you now have velocity. And it's got everything to do with goal setting, because there are people who really get the concepts confused. They do a lot of stuff, but nothing gets accomplished because they have no velocity. I would rather have you go slower in the right direction than go fast while making no progress, because there's a huge difference between being busy and productive. Have you ever completed 90% of your to-do list items without getting those two really important items checked off? You know what I'm talking about. We all do it. If so, you were busy, but not productive. You had speed, but not velocity. Busy people try to cram as much stuff, whatever it is they can find, into their calendars as possible, while productive people thoughtfully chisel their calendars down to the essentials and build from there. We talked about going to the essentials, thinking from first principles in the last episode. And by the way, there's a lot of psychological research that it suggests that people keep themselves busy to avoid dealing with trauma. It's really fascinating. Don't have time to get into it. But if you're someone who just crams your calendar filled with a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter, it's just meaningless chatter, you don't have velocity, all you have is speed, you're probably trying to avoid some sort of trauma. Well, I just dropped something heavy on you right there. But yeah, you can Google that, get down the rabbit hole. If you want to learn more, just email me. And if I have the resources handy, I can give them to you. Otherwise, I can just give you a summary. Busy people, what they do is they jump like Pavlovian dogs every time they get a phone notification. Productive people, they don't even have their phones in the same room with them. Busy people try to multitask all the time, while productive people, they focus on one task at a time. They're laser focused. In fact, one of the biggest differences I've seen between successful and unsuccessful financial advisors is the ability, and I'm being dead serious. It sounds so simple, but I'm being 100% serious right now. It is the ability to just sit in a room and focus on something for a few hours. When was the last time you were in a room alone for 4 hours straight with no distractions? I mean, none. Not a phone call, not a text message, not a social media notification, nothing. Just you and your goals. Again, it's not about how fast you're moving. It's about direction. Now, of course, moving fast in the right direction is better than moving slowly in the right direction, of course, but you must make sure you're going in the right direction first. I've mentioned this on the show before about people digging. The amateurs will say, how can I dig faster? The professionals will say, how can I make sure I'm digging in the right place? This is all about speed versus velocity. I'm just giving you another way to think about it. This is one of the most important mental models I can ever give you. Please do something with it. Next one. It's all about catalyst. In purely scientific terms, catalysts accelerate change. They decrease the amount of time required for a change to occur. However, they cannot make a reaction occur that would normally not occur. The catalyst that makes paper cannot bake bread, even though both require a catalyst of some sort. Over the past few years, there's been a trend for people to know their why. Like, figure out your why. Like, you just need to figure out your why and everything will be great. But the people who do that, they're missing the fact that you can't have just one why. You need lots of them because your why is a catalyst. You have a why for baking bread. You have a why for making paper. These are the different catalysts. You cannot use the same catalyst for everything. You wouldn't recommend a cookie cutter financial plan to your clients, would you? Well, you shouldn't use cookie cutter motivation either. Of course, it's not as simple as finding, one thing in each situation that will get you going. Sometimes your catalyst, it's a mixture of items. For example, not everyone is motivated by money because there are some marketing campaigns that can make a lot of money, but they're difficult. So money alone won't do it. I don't know what it is for you, but you need to find the catalyst to get you moving in each section of your business. Having one why isn't enough. And finally, the last mental model I want to discuss revolves around the law of the minimum. This is fascinating. The law of the minimum states that the yield of a crop will always be dictated by the essential nutrient that is available at the lowest level. It doesn't matter how abundant all the other nutrients are, being deficient in one will always limit the crop's growth. This means when you're thinking, you must think of your business as a plant that needs all the right nutrients to survive. Some financial advisors get in trouble when they try to spread themselves too thin. When I say you should have multiple marketing strategies, yes, that requires work. But I would rather have you use 3 marketing strategies really well, aka have those, if your plant only needs 3 nutrients, you give those 3 nutrients in abundance, than to try 6 marketing strategies and do them poorly. At the lowest level, you fall off on the 6th quote unquote nutrient and your plant is limited, especially when you consider that prospective clients are likely checking you out in multiple areas as well. Let's say someone visits your website and your website's amazing, but then that person visits your LinkedIn profile and sees that you have a crappy profile photo, a weird headline, or maybe there's not much activity. The work you put into your website doesn't matter as much. Your growth is limited by the lack of this metaphorical, figurative nutrient. Here's another example. The price of a fertilizer goes up. So farmers use less of it. This is economics. They say, oh, this fertilizer is more expensive. We're going to use less of it. Okay. And they use more of cheaper nutrients. So they're overcompensating. But it doesn't matter because the other nutrients cannot compensate for lack. The missing nutrient must be there. And this is true if you break your business down into its component parts. If you have incredible marketing but terrible service, your business will suffer. If you have incredible service but terrible marketing, your business will suffer too. You need everything. And the reason you're listening to the Financial Advisor Marketing Podcast, presumably, is to improve your marketing because you know that marketing is so important. There are lots of financial advisors out there who could run circles around, the average financial advisor academically. They've got tons of experience, tons of designations. They are so good at what they do. It's like mind-boggling, okay? They regurgitate different facts, different statistics, like an Excel spreadsheet. It's sorcery what they do with these things, but they suck at marketing. So they're stuck making $80,000 every single year for their entire career. And they want to tell people, oh yeah, I'm a business owner. And they go to the little meetings. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, yes, can be kind of hurtful. Yes, it can be kind of mean, but it is what it is. You have to have all the nutrients there. You have to obey the law of the minimum. There are many people out there who have 5 out of 6 components just rocking and rolling. They're doing so well, but they're limited by this one thing. And if they had the mental model to address it, if they knew that this even existed, they would rocket themselves into the stratosphere. And that is it for this 4-part series. Thank you so much for listening to it. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening to podcasts. Share it with someone. Again, doesn't cost you a dime to share it, but it helps me quite a bit. It helps the show quite a bit. Give me your feedback. Let me know what you thought. Tag me on LinkedIn. Send me an email to james@theadvisorcoach.com. Do something, and I'll catch you next week.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.